have you on the show.
Good morning, Mr. Mike.
And also joining us is Savio Remy Ademiwura. Yes, he's a fellow, Nigerian Institution of Surveyors, FNIS. Good morning, and good to have you on the program this morning.
Good morning. Well, actually, it's Remy Aromiwura.
Okay, Aromiwura.
That's right.
Okay, not Ademiwura. I'll make that correction. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
All right,
no
so
problem.
Savio, let's begin with flooding. From your own perspective as a surveyor, what is flooding? How would you describe flooding?
Okay, to a layman, I would say flooding is an occurrence where we have an unusually or where we have water collection over the surface of the land or a particular area of the land that is above normal. Yes.
Okay, that's flooding, water level.
Yes,
rising
when
above
when
normal.
water covers a particular surface,
Alright.
a particular area of the earth surface, that is, and that level is abnormal.
So, what are the major causes of this water rise, this abnormal water increase above the earth surface?
Okay, there are a number of factors that will lead to flooding. There are a number of atmospheric factors. There are a number of cultural factors that have to do with.
Can we begin to break them down?
Okay, so when you look at atmospheric factors, you look at the normal, what the term that we're all used to hearing, global warming. Yes, which is which leads to a rise in sea level. So you end up having that rise in sea level, then having a spillover on the earth's surface or on the land. Yes.
So, what about climate change?
Yes, so climate change also is part of what leads to, or global warming leads to climate change. Yes, so it's also one of the reasons why we have flooding.
Okay. All right, so that's under the
Yes, atmospheric. Yes, and
Okay,
then
you mentioned cultural.
cultural practices. When we like we see a lot of times in Lagos where people are used to either building on drainage channels or obstructing the natural drainage pattern, and then also the way we dispose waste that leads to blockages on the existing channels.
So these are some of the major causes of
Yes.
flooding. Okay, let me turn to Savio Remy. Can you explain what the role of surveyors is, or the role surveyors play in identifying early signs of flooding?
Well, thank you. And I think before I actually go into that,
Right.
you see, global warming, climate change is more of a recent phenomenon. Even without that, we had issues of flooding. There are things that are, make a location, a situation prone to flooding. You see, in Lagos, for instance, Lagos is a natural area that is prone to flooding because of the elevation. It's on a low level, so and that is close to the sea level.
Right.
The meaning of that is that when the flooding, which is a natural disaster, when there is a high volume of water, couldn't discharge immediately, then flooding becomes an issue. There are many factors that lead to that. And in Lagos, for instance, the urbanization is an issue. If you look from Lagos to Lekki, for instance, there are no longer bushs. And the density is also an issue in the sense that because you have to accommodate so many people, there are houses everywhere,
Right.
and you no longer have what we call soft landscaping. You see, in those days, when you look at GRAs, you see a vast land and you see a small house in between. When the rain falls, in a short while, the water disappears, it goes down.
Okay.
All those places are now hard landscapes. So it collects water and the volume builds up and the rate of discharge becomes an issue. So that's where the environmental issue was talking about comes in.
Right.
So when those channels are blocked, then you're in crisis immediately. So what are the what can the surveyors do? You see,
Yes.
the surveying comes in actually in the planning stages.
Okay, that's the planning stage.
That's right. You see, I tell people, if you do any planning, if you come up with any plan that has no survey input, what you have is simply a piece of art. It's an artwork. It's not a technical, document.
Okay.
If it's a technical document,
Right.
you must have survey data. The survey data Essentially, topography.
Now, when you say survey data, to the layman out there, can you explain this? Can you break this down?
You see, a data is a collection of information.
Right.
And what kind of information? That's the type of thing that we collect.
Okay.
It could be the position information, the height information, the relative positioning information, and all that.
Okay.
And of course, you have to be able to interpret as well. And the integrity of the data you are collecting becomes also an issue. It's not just collecting data. What data is usable? So when those data are put to use, appropriate use, then you can do analysis, and that will inform the kind of designs that you do. One thing is also to do a design, another one is to enforce the control of the implementation of those designs.
Okay.
When that one is not done, the essence of design is even lost itself. And I think also that over time, we are able to protect urban designs, the town planning design, the organizational designs. We are able to police them. And why also, the rate of development is faster.
Okay.
So it's difficult for government to meet up. We are not in a society where,
Strict regulation.
yeah, where maybe the workforce also, the regulation enforcement, the system is a bit slow, and people get away with a lot of things. So that's why some of these things becomes seriously compounded. You can start, maybe later on we'll go into the kind of things we can do
Absolutely,
to redress.
yes, we definitely will look at that. All right. So now, looking at the role the role a surveyor plays in when it comes to identifying early signs of flooding. Let's look at it from technical terms now. How can a surveyor identify early signs of flooding? If it's a place you've never been to, and is there a way you can tell that, look, this place is a flood-prone area? Do not acquire a piece of land here, or there are things you're going to have to do before you begin to build.
Okay, like Surveyor Remy rightly said, any development or any drawing that doesn't have a surveyor's input is just a piece of art. And then like we always say that surveying is the bedrock of all meaningful development.
Absolutely.
So that means that any form of development that neglects the input of the surveyor is a development that is not sustainable. So when a surveyor comes into an environment,
Right.
there are certain things that would catch his attention. Some of those things are the natural elevation. Yes. So he looks at the natural elevation, and then he can tell that in a few years from now, this place is going to be prone to flooding.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You can even project into the future.
Yes, because where you have people, for instance, an environment where you can easily identify the natural drainage pattern or the natural drainage direction, the direction that water should run off from that particular location. And then you now discover that that particular area that should serve as a drainage point or a drainage access has been covered by development.
Wow.
It now tells you that the moment water is collected at that particular area,
Right.
what you end up having is an artificial lake as against water running off naturally.
Naturally.
Yes. And then a lot of times we find people who acquire lands along floodplains.
So
Yes.
does that have an effect on the environment in the future?
Yes, it does. Because what are those floodplains supposed to serve? There's a purpose for which floodplains are reserved.
Naturally.
Yes, there's a natural purpose for which they are reserved. So that in case the river or the stream or the ocean overflows its immediate bank,
Right.
those floodplains are supposed to serve as buffer zones. Yes. So, but when you have people acquire those lands that are supposed to be on the floodplains and then put up developments there, build on those floodplains, you have just exposed yourself to flood, because when the rains come, when the water level rises, it will definitely overflow into your property.
So even the earth crust itself has a plan for itself.
Yes, the whole earth. If you look at the whole earth structure, there's a plan.
For itself.
Yes.
Naturally. Lagos, Nigeria. You're listening to the Benchmark, a beautiful Friday morning, and we're talking flooding, early signs, and the role of surveyors in its mitigation. My guest here, Surveyor Agu Ogbonna Roberts, Publicity Secretary, Association of Private Practicing Surveyors of Nigeria, APSIN, Lagos State Branch, and Surveyor Remy Aromiwura, is a fellow Nigerian Institution of Surveyors, FNIS. A quick traffic update. Let's talk about what has gone so far out there traffic-wise. So far we have recorded fine movement from Kara towards Lagos. That's along the Lagos Ibadan Expressway. That's from Kara into Lagos down to Otedola. The return journey from Otedola through Baja on route Kara, I understand, quite busy owing to the activities of the ram sellers at Kara. All right, then, so let's move on. We have traffic managers on ground at OPIC alternating and managing the traffic situation to ensure the neighboring state activities does not paralyze our roads. But no major impediment recorded, just the activities of the ram sellers there at Kara. All right, quick one covering the Shomolu axis. I understand one lane around the Oyingbo flyover for those connecting Oyingbo roundabout towards Jeba. I understand it's quite busy using the flyover rather, and we have another lane leading towards Ido. I hear it's a moving traffic on the other lane. But as you descend the bridge, traffic seems quite encouraging towards Ido. That's on the rest of the journey through Ijara Lokba. All right, it's a movement underneath the Oyingbo flyover connecting Oyingbo roundabout. Quite busy. Traffic looking quite busy. Yes, for the return journey from Ijara Lokba through Ido, it's a good one. But Ido connecting Oyingbo, Jeba, kind of quite busy at this time, owing to market activities around the Oyingbo corridor. We have officers on ground making sure things are done appropriately. Now, a quick one, Alausai Keja, and we'll do this in summary. It's quite busy now, particularly on Latif Jakande Road, taken up from Omole roundabout en route to Wemco Junction to link Ahmed Junction. At this moment in time, busy situation. And here it's occasioned by activities of men of the drain dock packing some sand out of the road, and the truck has occupied almost 60% of the road, causing a backlog which has extended slightly beyond Omole. However, we have traffic managers on ground, yes, very much on ground, managing the situation. All right, then it's the bench back here on Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. Of course, it's raining out there, and yes, we've been monitoring things via the live camera update infrastructure here, the big screen. It's raining out there along areas like Kudrat Abiola Way here in Ikeja, also Outlaw Road. Yes, quite busy. Latif Jakande, it's raining actually, and Oregon Road. Rains and light showers being experienced at this time. Remember to drive cautiously as you drive through the rain. 0915-387-7127, 0809-9120-777. We've got questions for the surveyors here. Of course, yes, it's relating to what we're talking about, flooding, early signs and the role of surveyors in its mitigation. Feel free to connect with us. WhatsApp is up and running, 0809-9120-777 or 0915-387-7127. Don't forget we're live on YouTube, Traffic Radio 961. Feel free to hit the like button, you can share, and of course hit the subscribe button as well. All right, then, so back to the topic of conversation, flooding, early signs and the role of surveyors in its mitigation. All right, so let me talk to Surveyor Remy. Let's look at some of the common indicators of potential flooding that you look out for as a surveyor, given a piece of land to work on.
Well, thank you very much. Like he has also started it. When a parcel of land is selling in an isolated place, then what are the signs? You look at the relative positioning of that place with the environment, and that environment can take you some distance away from where you are. You see, for instance as well, I've witnessed some land reclamation.
Okay.
You know, when you sand fill, I don't know whether you notice, they sand fill flat. And usually, if you sand fill, you need to take your reference from some other places. Could be some distance from here, maybe the road, where the water may likely come to that direction. You need to be also aware of the direction of flow of the water. How is water discharging? Where are you located in relative position to all these places? Then you can now establish where you are. To my mind, when you are reclaiming land, you should actually design the finished level of that reclamation. when you do flat thing and you start constructing drain, you find that your drain is not even flowing. You see, things like like I told you, when you don't have survey data, you are just you are just an artist.
So you can get all these determinants via
That-
the survey data.
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
Even though we must also acknowledge that some of these activities are also multidisciplinary in nature, but whichever one, whoever is handling, these are basic information for you to even make any, inroad. So when you work together, you get the best of things. You see, good things don't happen by accident.
Right.
You get to places, you see everything in place, you think, no, it's not an accident. You see, I was trying to also say that, look, Lagos is not the only place that experiences this kind of things. I've been to Miami, Florida.
Right.
It's a similar situation with Lagos. It's on a low, plane.
Right.
All right, and they do a number of things, to handle it, including artificial lakes,
Okay.
including troughs that you now put in pump, so that they can collect a large volume of water, so that to dam the effect of the flooding, and thereafter you now pump gradually, and all that.
So let's look at the impact of early detection by surveyors in terms of mitigating flood damage. Yes, how can early detection mitigate flood damage?
Early detection, for instance, will also mean like a warning sign about development.
Right.
So if you have that information, one, if you have to go in, you have to go your building has to be very high. If you recall, the Commissioner for Environment, Lagos State, visited Isheri North the other time,
Yes.
and there's a serious flooding problem there. Now, what's the solution? He said, look, if you raise the roads, the buildings will be flooded. So it's complex. So at that time, I think the development goes faster than government activities. If they have the right information, those buildings will not be at the level they are. So correcting it is a lot of other combination of factors.
Yeah, we're going to
Like,
go into that. Yes.
But now, if you have known, then they should not have built at the level of where they build. They will have to raise it considerably. When that one is done, then they can, they can live well there. The road can also come up. Then the issue of draining, and of course, that means once you can drain properly, then that means the flooding is taken care of.
Okay, let me talk to you, Surveyor Agu Roberts. When it comes to assessing flood risks, now how is this data used? How do you collect this data, and how is it used in terms of assessing flood risks?
Okay, so talking about data collection.
Yes.
So surveyors have various means with which we collect data. So there are a number of specialized equipment that we make use of in data collection, and then the type of development or the purpose for the data determines what data sets are acquired.
Okay.
Yes. So if you need data for instance, for flood management,
Okay.
the data sets to be collected will differ from the data sets to be collected if what you intend to do is maybe area enumeration, area demarcation for census.
Okay.
Yes. So the intended use of the data determines what data sets will be collected, and then it also determines what equipment will be deployed.
0915-387-7127. WhatsApp is up and running. 0809-9120-777. Okay, Elder Lee is reaching out to us on WhatsApp and it says, "Good morning, Traffic Radio. Please, there's an avoidable traffic on Agidingbi towards Gunusi Road. The cause is a tipper taking sand from the drainage, which I believe will be done at night. And okay, all right, and for this to the appropriate authorities, elderly, thank you so much. He's been trying to reach out to us. All right, and this one reaching out from the Alausai Keja corridor. It says we're having a busy movement on Latif Jakande Road from Omale roundabout onward to Wemco Junction towards Akmet Junction at this moment. And this is occasioned by activities of the men of the drain dock packing some sand out of the road. All right, truck occupying 60% of the road. Traffic backing up to Omole. Okay, this is from traffic manager, I didn't see. Thank you so much for the heads up. All right, and the last one here says, okay, it's an impediment. We're broken down high capacity bus at that's along Alimo Shop bus stop. I say it's off the road. All right then, 0915 387 7127. That shows the benchmark, and we're talking flooding. Yes, we're looking at the issue of flooding. I have the surveyors here in the building. Surveyor Agu Ogona Roberts, Publicity Secretary, Association of Private Practicing Surveyors of Nigeria, Lagos State Branch, and also Surveyor Remy Arumiwura is a fellow Nigerian Institution of Surveyors, FNIs. And we're looking at flooding, early signs, and the role of surveyors in its mitigation. So let's now talk about some of the challenges, the key challenges surveyors face when assessing flood-prone areas. Okay, let me talk to Surveyor Remy on this. The key challenges faced when assessing flood-prone areas.
Well, you see, field surveying has its own challenges, and of course there are peculiarities as well, and that's why you are usually prepared for such things. But the good thing is that you see the technology has come in. We can also obtain data remotely, and what that means is that we only have controls on those inaccessible areas, and we can now remotely obtain our data to the best of accuracies and to still meet the purpose for which they are intended.
Okay, okay, we have a message here. This one's coming in from Shadi, connecting with us from Omoli, and she's asking a question. After I've built my house and I discover that that area is flood prone, what can be done to correct this and to avoid flood from entering my building? He's asking that question. So
Okay.
is it that can the surveyor still come in? Because you, while we're having the conversation earlier during the program, you said flood-prone areas can be detected at the early stage. At the beginning, at the early stage. So after all the deed has been done, you've ignored the work of the surveyor, you've erected your building, and now you've discovered this. Can the surveyors come in to make any corrections? Or how can they come in to?
Okay, so early detection is preventive.
Oh, okay.
You have built and you discover that you're in the middle of the flood, so it's curative.
Okay.
So yes, surveyors still have a role to play.
In that
so
regard.
in that regard, yes. And then one of the things they will come in to do is to determine at what point you are, at what level you are with respect to the surrounding areas. What is the level that your structure is sitting on relative to surrounding infrastructure, surrounding drainages, surrounding road levels, surrounding discharge points, canals, and all that. So that information will now aid in a design of proper amenities to help take water out of.
So does that mean that some buildings will have to be pulled down and roads expanded?
Well, it depends on the degree to which the flooding is happening around there, and then also to the degree that those buildings are in obstruction to the drainage patterns or the drainage channels.
Richard is reaching out to us from Egbeda and says, come and see the entire area with shops. I've taken over the entire area and buildings, and most of the time when it rains, it's usually flooded. What can be done in this regard from your own point of view as a surveyor? That's Richard coming in from Egbeda.
Well,
I don't know if you applied that, you're familiar with that area.
Well, I don't know what part of Egbeda he's talking about, but if it's the Sherry Egbeda road that leads to Mosalashi, then Yanopaja, it's quite a busy stretch.
Okay, let's see if we can take this call. Coming in. Good morning to you. Yes, a very good morning to you. This must be Grandma. Grandma Lionka, good to have you on the show. Good morning. Okay, go on.
Eco Atlantic. Eco Atlantic.
Eco Atlantic. Okay. All right, Grandma Lanka, my guest will respond to your question. You can listen over the radio. All right. Okay, so who's going to respond to
Now, you see, that's a well-planned place. Like I told you, there are a number of places all over the world that are at a low elevation.
Right.
So deliberately, you can develop such places by adequate planning. Now, beyond the planning and execution is also the maintenance and the control. That has to be constantly in place, and that's what will guarantee that nothing happens. So there is no danger. There won't be any danger.
So you say it's a well-planned.
That's right. I saw that it's a deliberate
no
thing.
dangers.
That's right. They've raised it high enough, and there's an embankment. In fact, if you recall, the Barbie used to flood. Do you see any flood any
Back in the
longer?
day,
That's
yes,
right.
of
You
course.
know, so there are measures. Like I was telling you, a number of measures. There's not only just one. And I was sharing in Miami. One of the things they're also doing in Miami is to control the coastal interface, so that the water, in fact, they separate the salt water from the fresh water. And so many activities, and it's only not only one measure. What we're discussing here now is how our data, the data we acquire and produce with high integrity, can support the solution where, in any form. And that's what, we're talking about now.
So what can be done to control flooding in key areas where have been identified as flood prone, as we argue?
Okay, so if certain areas have been identified as flood prone, I think the first thing to do is look at existing infrastructure there.
Structures, okay.
Yes, look at the existing infrastructure, and then how well do they support the mitigation of flooding, or how well do they aid flooding? So if you have inadequate structures or inadequate infrastructure there that will not aid in the mitigation of flooding, then I think it's now left for the government to enforce compliance. It's not left for government to enforce compliance. Yes. So you're looking at drainages, and then how clear are those drainages? How adequate are they? Because, like Sovioremi rightly said, development moves faster than planning in this part of the world.
Yes.
Yes. So government needs to also sit up to ensure that planning moves ahead of development, so that you don't have people moving ahead, moving faster than the planning, and then so for instance, Lagos, I will say the master plan is long overdue for an update. Yes, it's long overdue for an update. So
Okay, so I have this message here, and it's coming in from Ola. Ola from Ablegba is asking, how can one identify a genuine surveyor?
okay, we get that question a lot.
A lot.
So first things first is ensure that the surveyor who you are engaging identifies himself by his registration number.
Registration number.
Yes, by his registration number. And then, like we will always advise, stop transacting with surveyors on the streets.
Okay.
Stop transacting with surveyors in your house. Stop transacting with surveyors on your site. Insist on meeting with them in their office. Every registered surveyor practicing in Lagos State has an office. Now, when you get to the office, there are certain things you should look out for. You will see, because it is mandatory, that he displays his certificate of registration boldly on the wall.
Okay.
Yes. So you look out for his certificate of registration,
Okay.
and then look out for his company registration details and documents. Yes. And then simple, just over your smartphone, you could just type in his name. He tells you his name, type in his name on Google, and then his details will pop up, and then confirm that the name he gave you, because his picture will also pop up. Ensure that there's a correspondence between his picture that is popping up and the person standing in front of you.
So must every registered surveyor belong to an association? Talking about APSIN?
Yes, every private practicing surveyor
Okay.
must be a member of the Association of Private Practicing Surveyors of Nigeria.
So how can, for one who would like to connect with the association, how can that be possible?
Okay, so the association has its office on the NIS building, Nigerian Institution of Surveyors building. It's on as Beefy Road, just adjacent the Revenue House. That's the former Elephant House in the CBD area of Alausa.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so over to Savio Remy. What, before I let you go, what would be your advice? What advice would you give to property owners and developers in flood-prone areas to minimize their risks?
Well, especially to developers,
Yes.
because they are more likely to acquire land in areas that are far from current developments. So they need to do adequate planning, all right, and get all the information required to situate the acquired land in relation to the existing infrastructures,
Okay.
and to project those infrastructures to the location of the facilities, so that they can take appropriate decisions in when it comes to development.
And over to you, Savio Agu Roberts.
Yes. Once you've acquired land, ensure that you engage a surveyor, a fully
registered,
qualified, yes, preferably a registered surveyor. Yes, so he will help you in planning your development, and then also it's one thing for him to give you an advice, it's another thing for you to adhere to his recommendations.
Alright.
So, but I will always encourage people to trust your surveyor. He knows what he's doing.
All right, Lagos, this is where we're going to draw the curtain on the program, The Benchmark, this beautiful Friday one. I must say a very big thank you to you, Savio Agu Ogbonna Roberts.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for coming on board. And also to Savio Remy Aromiwura, thank you so much. All right, then, my guests have been Savio Agu Ogbonna Roberts, his publicity secretary absent, Lagos State Branch, and Savio Remy Aromiwura, fellow Nigerian Institution of Surveyors. And also, big thank you go out to Victor Terry for assisting in production. And on behalf of my executive producer, Tayo Akunle, the show will come your way again, talking about The Benchmark, will come your way again next week, Friday, at exactly 10:15. Until then, have yourself a wonderful weekend. We're saying happy holidays to you. And yes, remember to do things moderately. My name is Mike James. To have yourself a wonderful Friday.